All right, welcome to the weekly roundup. I know we started late, and I did that on purpose because the Jewish people were late to receiving the Torah. That's why we're notoriously, it's called Jewish time when you're a little bit late. No, I didn't do it on purpose, but we were late. And I want to speak a little bit about I want to speak a little bit about Shavuot and then briefly about the Parsha. We're not going to have so much time today. Let's begin with Shavuot. So Shavuot will take place, I think Friday and Shabbos. And it's only one day Yom Tov in Israel. It's 2 days outside. Shavuot has no mitzvah, like special mitzvah connected to it. That's why that's what the story goes. That's why people don't really know much about Shavuot outside of the frum, religious, Orthodox world, because there's no special thing connected to it, right? Very important to have a lot of symbolism on holidays. It's very important to do special activities. That's why there is like a lot of we always introduce new, I shouldn't say new, but we always have special activities, special symbolisms connected to holidays because it helps people remember. Shavuot doesn't have any. Yes, we eat cheesecake and we'll have some dairy and we'll speak about why. So Shavuot, let's start with something like this. What do we read special on Shavuot besides the Torah? First of all, what is Shavuot? Shavuot was when we got the Torah. On the 5th day of Sivan, it happened on a Shabbos. On the 6th day of Sivan. It happened on a Shabbos. It was supposed to be on the 5th day, it seems, but then Moshe pushed it off a day, and God liked that. It happened on the 6th day of Sivan. Got the Torah. We woke up to the sound of the shofar, a kol gadol shelo yasaf, a strong voice that kept going and going, and it never stopped, and it became extremely loud. And then we had some sort of revelation of godliness. 3 million people were there. And nobody denied what they heard and what they saw. They saw thunder and they heard lightning. It was just these weird miracles. It was an unbelievable experience. It was like the ultimate inspirational moment of life, but like all inspiration doesn't last. Inspiration is only there to kick off the hard work. You might feel inspired and it lifts you up, but you quickly fall back down. And that's why it only took us 40 days to go back to idol worship. It's kind of a bummer, although it was not so many people. So we celebrate Shavuot to commemorate the giving of the Torah. We know the concept, this line of Niskaran Lanasim. We recall the days. We recall and remember a holiday in order to do it. It's a weird line. Niskaran V'nasim. It says the Torah, every holiday repeats itself. That time works in a spiral. I know we've spoken about that many times. So there'll be a point, an event will happen, and then you move away from the event in time. So you're moving further away, but it'll realign itself every year on that anniversary. It means, and it accepts it. It can reconnect to that energy. So it's not linear, right? An event doesn't happen and then it never happens again. Like we move away from it. No, it's time. We keep revisiting it every single year. So we move away in time, but in terms of energy, spiritual energy, or whatever is supposed to be accomplished on that day is revisited. So we're actually going to receive the Torah once again. The only bummer is we're in galut, we're in galus, and we don't. Our neshamas, our souls are so covered over, so much dross. Yeah, dross is that the word? So it's so covered over that we aren't so sensitive to it. There are obviously people that are; those are called tzaddikim, but there are few and far between. I don't know any. So it's a huge event. And it's the giving of the Torah, and the reason why there are no symbolisms and there are no special mitzvot connected to Shavuot is because it is beyond all of the mitzvot. It is beyond all of the holidays. It is beyond, right? It's the giver of it. It's the kickoff. It encompasses everything, and therefore it doesn't have anything. It has all of it is included. You can say Happy Hanukkah on Shavuot. You can say almost you could say wish someone easy Yom Kippur, because it's included within. It's all included within the Torah. It's all included with. It's beyond it. It's beyond everything. It's encompassing. It's all encompassing. So there is nothing that's connected straight to this specific holiday because it encompasses all the other holidays. Yes. So we have dairy food, and the reason why we have dairy food is because we became converts on the giving of the Torah. Before that, there was no such thing as the Jewish people. There was the family and the tribes of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what we were. We were just one big family. But there was no Jewish people. We didn't know what is that. We didn't have any mitzvot. We didn't have the Torah. We didn't have anything that gave us the identity. And there had to have a certain something had to happen in order for there to be introduced the Torah and the Jewish people. What happened? What exactly is going on? So what is so special about Shavuot besides the giving of the Torah? What event happened on that day? And what was the point of all these miracles? And what was the point of all God doesn't do miracles for the sake of just doing miracles. So the answer is, there's a medrash. There is the medrash, it explains everything inside the Torah. It's like the Torah is like all over the place. Yeah, it's not in chronological order. Things are left out. We're introduced to things out of nowhere. So the medrash is the tradition that fills in all the gaps, tells us what's going on. And that's a tradition that was passed down from generation to generation. And it's written down. You have the Tanchuma, Sifri, Sifra, all these different types of midrashim, part of the canon of Torah. So what it explained was, there's a medrash that says, before the giving of the Torah, lo yarda milmaila lo maila lamata. Something like that. The upper heavens and the lower worlds, the upper worlds and lower worlds didn't mix. So what that means is the spiritual world and the physical world, which we live in, they were not allowed to mix. They were not allowed to work within each other. That's why Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it says, they did the Torah and mitzvot. They understood there was these Torah and mitzvot. And it says that Abraham used to bind these twigs around his hands and in between his eyes, and that was tefillin. But what did he do with it after he was done praying with these twigs and whatever he did on his head? He just threw them on the ground. There was no holiness to it. Unlike nowadays, tefillin, mezuzah, a sefer Torah, you cannot throw it on the ground. And you cannot just discard it wherever you want. It has to be buried, and there's special holiness that's attached to it. Because everything in this world now, there became a fusion of holy, spiritual, and physical at the giving of the Torah. What God did at the giving of the Torah, which is so significant, the whole universe, the whole creation went through a shift. That everything became mixed. Holy spirituality and physicality became mixed together, and therefore now we have a guidebook on how to extract the spiritual from the physical. We are actually able to shed light, reveal the spiritual in the physical, the godliness in the physical world. That is what took place, and therefore we have this guide, and the Torah was given and it taught us how to do it. Now, yes, of course, we don't really understand it. We try to understand as much as we can. We learn Kabbalah, we learn Chassidus, we learn the more esoteric parts of the Torah, but for the most part, we're very physical beings, and we won't fully appreciate what took place on Shavuos and what the Torah does until Mashiach comes. And Mashiach's job, what is his job as a king? He's going to be a Torah scholar. That's mainly what he's going to be occupied with, and he's going to show us and teach us a perspective on the world, to see the world in its proper perspective. We don't know how. It says that we're like born in a dark room. When you're born in a dark room, you actually think it's light. You don't know that you're in a dark room. You think this is light. When you walk into a dark room, you know it's dark. But if you're born in a dark room, then you think that's light. We don't even have the tools. We don't even understand how to look. We don't even have the first step almost, except we know that we're in a dark room. And therefore, that's what the Torah told us. That's what the Torah says, that you're born. It's kind of a dark room. It wasn't always like that. At the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, everything was very clear, and we were at the highest levels of spiritually that we could possibly be. But that's not what God wanted. God wanted a world, not a perfect world. He wanted the world to need rectification. He needed a world that wanted a fixing. He wanted us to work for it. He doesn't want just inspiration. He wants perspiration. Excuse me. And he gets a lot more joy from us working through the issue and overcoming the issue or the challenge that we're presented with, and revealing the true reason for the challenge, or the reason for the covering over, etc., etc. Anyway, so that's what happened on Shavuos. There was a shift in the whole creation. Now we were able to be Jews, because that is what a Jew is. A Jew's job he's a leader, a pioneer. He or she is a pioneer in how to reveal the spiritual within the physical. And the Torah teaches us how to do that. So we became Jews on Shavuot. Everybody became Jewish at that time. And this is reflected in the story of Ruth. We read the story of Ruth. It's actually just a writing. There's no miracles in the story of Ruth, but she sums up exactly basically the mission of the Jewish people. Now, who was Ruth? So Ruth is a Moabite princess who came from Moab. You guys remember the story of Moab from a long time ago? Who is Moab? What is Moab? Moab was when Lot, the nephew of Abraham, he was the governor, Lot. He was the governor of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? I think that's how you say it in English. Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. So he was a governor, and they were coming to destroy. The angels were coming to destroy the whole city. It was a metropolis. It was coming to destroy the metropolis. And they did, but they saved Lot and his 2 daughters. Really, Lot and his wife, but she was very annoying. So they killed her off pretty early. Now she did what she wasn't supposed to do. So Lot and his 2 daughters, they escape, and they think the world is actually being destroyed. They think they weren't that far removed from Noah. In fact, Abraham met Noah. It's pretty clear. It's not very clear, but it's pretty certain that Abraham and Noah crossed paths. So, and Noah obviously was there for the story of right. He was there for the flood. So Lot actually thought that the story, God was destroying the world once again. So did his daughters. So his daughters, they did something quite crazy. They thought we have to repopulate the world. So they go ahead and they seduce their father by giving him a lot of alcohol. And they get pregnant. So an incestuous relationship, they get pregnant. The older daughter is quite interesting. She decides, out of her arrogance and her whatever, that's what she was, very arrogant. She named her child Moab, which means from my father. So a little bit of a wild, she got a bit of wildness in her. Moab ended up becoming, so she had descendants, and they ended up becoming these idol worshipping powerhouses outside of the land of Israel. And the land of Israel has a famine. And Naomi, there's a woman named Naomi. She married to Elimelech. She was very wealthy, but and a very kind woman. And she seeks into poverty because there's nothing to invest in. There's no food, and they have to go to Moab, the country of Moab. And she meets Ruth, and Ruth is she's really not into her family. It's a very highly dysfunctional family. All the greats come from highly dysfunctional families. Just to add something, I want to just make sure. It says that B'Tselem Elokim Nasa Adam, that man is made in the image of God. So if we're made in the image of God, God is perfect, and therefore everybody is perfect, right? So what do we see? So on one level, that's true. We are. But God actually, says the Medrash, says Chassidus actually, that God has to put in extra work to make you imperfect. And to bring the novelty of creation is that there's imperfection, right? So that's what we say when we see somebody who's like a big angel. So a lot of Chassidim are like, what the hell with that guy? Who cares about that guy? God didn't put so much effort into him. Not much to learn from that guy. But the one that has a lot of imperfections, look, God really invested a lot of, look how much investment God put into that person. It's kind of a joke, but it's also true. So she came from this highly dysfunctional family. And when you have highly dysfunctional, it means there's a lot more godly energy there. And she was able, Ruth, she had this rebellious nature to her, but she was also very kind, which was opposite of what her parents were. Her parents were not very kind. The king and the queen, they had a lot of power, a lot of godly energy within them, but they used it out in the wrong way. She wanted to use it out in the right way. So she was able to curb that dysfunctionality, or that godly energy, that tremendous godly energy, to something. She wanted to use it for something good, something constructive, not destructive. So she meets Naomi. Ruth meets Naomi, and she gets very taken by her, despite the fact that Naomi has really nothing. She just loved her character, and she loved the Jewish way. And there was no reason for her to join the Jewish people. There was nothing there. She wasn't, at the outset, there was nothing to gain. Yet she left her family behind. She left everything behind in order to commit herself to Judaism. She's the ultimate convert, because there was no redeeming reason, there was no proper reason to join the Jewish people, and she still suffers hardships. Yet she went through everything, and she joined the Jewish people, and she went through another set of hardships. Her husband died, her father-in-law died, her brother-in-law died, and Naomi even said, everyone go back to where you came from. Your life will be better going back to your families, and just make it work. Do the best you can with what you got. And the sister-in-law who was also very sweet, very nice, she went back to Moab. But Naomi said, no, Ruth said, no, I'm sticking with you. I'm sticking this out. She ends up going back to Israel, meets Boaz, very wealthy man, very nice man, twice her age, interestingly enough. She wasn't necessarily looking for, an older man, but he was a gray fox. What could I say? No, I have no idea. She ended up marrying him. They have a child. And because of her selflessness and her commitment to Judaism, her commitment to Torah, her commitment to the way of life, even though there was no reason to do it, and Boaz was a righteous person himself, more or less, it seems. Those are the character traits necessary for kingship. Kingship, the main thing about kingship, you want to be a good king or queen, is humility. Yeah, you have to be humble. All of our greatest leaders were humble. It says Moses was the most humble man in the world. Jew and non-Jew. He was the most humble man in the world. He realized that he wasn't a self-made person. All of his talents came from God. So in order for you to be a king, you have to be humble. So then a humble person is receptive and can understand what the people need and what the people want. So she had this character trait, and therefore she ended up giving birth 4 generations later to, not her, but 4 generations later after her came King David, which then King Solomon. And we know that the righteous Mashiach, King Mashiach, will come from this family. Comes from Ruth, who comes from Moab, who comes from this incestuous relationship, by the way. Interestingly enough. So this is reflective of what is the commitment of a Jew, that it has to come from a selfless place. That's the best way you're going to do it. And humility, that in order for us to appreciate Torah, you have to be humble. Yeah, you have to be humble. In order for you to remember Torah, says the Torah, you have to be humble. People who can't remember things, or they don't learn very well, oftentimes their mind is preoccupied, obviously. So they're like a filled vessel, says Pirkei Avot. They're like a filled vessel. But a lot of times they're just thinking about themselves. Yeah, a lot of people who I can't do well in school. Okay, sometimes there could really be something there. But for the most part, it's because you are thinking about yourself. Why? Because perhaps you went through some sort of, whatever. You're self-centered. Now, sometimes for good reasons, but nevertheless, you have to be humble and open and not and to be focused. This is also reflective in the. Okay, so this what I want to say. Just to tie it into the parsha. Parshas Bamidbar, which is this week's parsha, is always read the Shabbos before Shavuos. What is why? What's the connection over here? What's some obvious connections? Well, first of all, the Torah was given in a midbar. It was given on Mount Sinai, not the biggest of mountains, not the smallest of mountains, not the most beautiful of mountains, but not the ugliest either. Very middle road, very middle path, and it was a mountain. It was not a hill. So you think the Torah should be given on the biggest mountain, or the most beautiful mountain, or if you want humility, it should be given in a valley. Below something so humble as a valley. And the answer is no. Mount Sinai, everything in this world has a soul to it. Humans, animals, and inanimate objects. They all have what's called a nefesh, right? We know that there's 5 levels or 4 levels of the soul, depending on who we're talking about, who and what. But everything has a nefesh. And the nefesh shows that's the godly life force that just brings it into existence. Not what makes it unique, a certain item or creation, what makes it unique, but merely for it to exist in this world, it has to have a nefesh. So the nefesh of Mount Sinai reflects what it takes to be a proper Torah Jew and to be proper. What is a mountain? So what's unique about Mount Sinai? Mount Sinai was not the smallest of mountains, but it wasn't the largest. It had humility to it. but yet it was still humble. You would say, what do you mean it was humble? Why? Okay, maybe it wasn't the biggest, but why would you say it's humble? It should have been a valley or a flat land. Okay, says the Torah, don't think you don't have self-worth. You have a humble person. What is humility in Torah? Humility in Torah means I recognize my talents, that I have a certain talent. I could do something better than most. You might not be the best, but in your lot, meaning your portion in everyday life, that's your lot. It's called your lot, your chelik in the world, yeah? On everyday life, there's something that you excel at that somebody else doesn't. And you know what it is. If you have an inkling of what it might be, it's probably true. And don't deny that. Don't be, it's called, the Rebbe would call it false humility. And the Rebbe would love to call out false humility. You're being falsely humble, and that's actually a sin. If you have a certain talent something that you can do better than most, and you don't use it out, then you're actually, it's like idol worship. You're doing it for yourself, for some self-fulfilling reason. And therefore, you're not doing it for God. You're not doing it for God's sake. You're serving yourself as opposed to serving God, or you're serving for whatever reason you're serving, but it's not for God. And therefore, that's false humility is something that is quite negative. You have to be open and honest with what you have. However, you should know, and you can appreciate that, like, look, God gave me these talents, or I developed them because I lived in a certain home. I lived in a certain environment. I had a certain mentor, a friend. I read something, and it sparked something within me, and it stirred me within me. And I, through my course of life, I had people and surroundings and environments that helped me develop that character trait. It's not that you are a self-made person. It really is. I'm not a self-made person. But you have to recognize the talent that you have developed, and you have to use it out. But at the same time, realize that it's not really coming from you. It's coming from God. God is working his way around you. So that's true humility. Not just sitting in the corner being a shmegegi. You got to use out your talents. That's reflected in Mount Sinai. The Mount Sinai, it wasn't a valley, because a valley shows that I'm sinking below the surface. I don't want to be seen. No, that's wrong. What do you mean, God? I don't need you to sit in a corner and do nothing. That's not the reason for your creation. You have to be out there. You have to show yourself, but you don't have to be large. You have to be larger than life. You don't have to. They had the story. You guys know the story of somebody goes to the Rebbe. He goes to his Rebbe, his teacher. He says, everyone in the shul is stepping on me. And so he goes, and the rabbi said to him, well, what do you expect when you spread yourself all over the floor? People are going to step on you. In other words, he was very loud and obnoxious, and whatever, he was loud, and he was in people's faces, and he was spreading himself out. People are going to step on you. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. So that's reflected in Mount Sinai. Now, why was it given in the desert? So that why was the Torah given in the desert? Why is it Parshas Bimidbar, which means desert, wilderness? It really is wilderness, not desert. You think desert, sand, whatever. Wilderness means like it's kind of like absent of life. But there was like mountains, there might have been a tree, but it's not really doing anything. The tree is not benefiting anything. It's like a wasteland, almost like a wasteland. Why was it given there? So that nobody can lay claim to the Torah. Again, the Torah is not trying to be in the most beautiful place. The Torah is trying to be, it's showing that I'm accessible anywhere. The Torah says you can fulfill God's saying you can fulfill my mission, the mission that I put into the Torah, anywhere in any situation, even in a place that looks like a wilderness. You can do it. And that is basically how you're going to approach the world. The world is void and naked at this point because it has the purpose. Yeah, a person doesn't feel their sense of purpose. The tree doesn't sense its purpose. I'm here and I'm existing, but what am I here for? What's my purpose? So that's what the Jew is there to do. The Jew was there. So that was like a place of a wilderness. Yeah, it's like barren. There's nothing there. There's something, but it's just like not reaching its potential by any stretch of the means. So that's what the Jew does. The Jew comes with the words of Torah and tells everything and shows everything and everybody its mission, including itself. In which in turn, it's not that the Jew is the only one that has to do it. It teaches other people how to teach other people, show everybody else their mission. Yeah. Now that can get out of hand, which I think happened a few times. Take a little bit of the truth and put a lot of falsehood around it, and you become a rock star. The truth has to be guarded. You have to guard the Torah, use the Torah, but you have to guard the Torah, and you got to use it out in the right way. But we do the best we can. So it says, God, I know you're going into the wilderness. Yeah, there's a place that's barren. You might not be able to do it. No, you can. Even the wilderness, everything has a purpose and a mission, and that is your purpose and mission. It's not enough just to sit and study the Torah. In fact, the Torah says, if you say, all I have is Torah study, meaning you don't do any mitzvahs, you don't do any action. All you do is sit and study Torah. Says the Torah, you don't even have Torah. You miss the whole point. The point is action, is taking the ideas and bringing them out. So that's one of the reasons why we have that's one of the reasons why the Torah is read before. This parsha is read, parsha called Bamidbar, the section called Bamidbar is read for the giving of the Torah. The parsha opens up speaking about God takes a census. The parsha is about a month after the building of the tabernacle, and God takes a census, and he counts all of us. Now, what's unique about counting? Why would God do that? First of all, God calls us. Here's where God calls us the army. He calls us a tzivos. He calls us an army. What's unique about an army, and it's reflected in counting something, and army are related, and it's necessary for us to approach Torah, the reading of the Torah and Shavuot. What's unique about counting is that counting, you everything is counted for. You have to look at the individual when you're counting the individual. You look at the individual, but at the same time, he's part of the collective whole. So the 600, there were 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, but you have to count each one individually, so you appreciate the one individually, but at the same time, we're telling you you're part of this whole, that you need a what's the word when you need a complement. You cannot accomplish the mission alone. You have your talent, but then you need somebody else to complement where you're not so good. The yin and the yang. You're not perfect. God said, I created you with an imperfection. Why? So that you could work together as a whole. You work together as a group, and that's also reflecting the idea of what an army is. An army, the idea is that it should be a collective whole, a collective group. And this is one of the places where we see God calls us an army. That's not enough. There was something I wanted to say. Just to point out over here. If you want to know where is the source of the Torah that the tribe is determined by the father, it says it over here. It says in verse 32, of the children of Yosef, the tribe of Ephraim, their descendants according to their families, according to their fathers' houses. So this is one of the places where we see that the tribe is determined by the father. Now, I wanted to say something over here. It says in tradition, I forget exactly who said it, but this is certainly accepted as tradition, that there's 600,000. That every Jew is connected to a letter in the Torah. So there were 600,000 Jews between the ages of 20 and 60. But it says that by the giving of the Torah, there are 600,000 Jews, and each Jew has a letter in the Torah. It's connected to a word in the Torah, a letter in the Torah. Now, if you look inside the Torah, there's 306,000 letters of the Torah, not 600,000 letters in the Torah. So what is it saying over here? So just something very interesting. So the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, explains that there's the ink part of the Torah, the black part of the Torah, right? So when you write something, it's black, So here in this case over here, Livanei, there's four letters over here, but then there's something called the white part of the Torah over here, the space in between. So between each letter, every letter is not allowed to touch each other. Shows on individuality. But there's the space in between the letters is also significant. It's just as significant. The Torah calls it black fire and white fire. So if you add all of the spaces between the letters, it'll add up to 613. So some of us, the white represents the spiritual part of the Torah, that there's a Torah in the spiritual realm, and the black is the Torah the way it is in the physical realm, defined, separate, unique. And that's only in the physical world. You really only see that in the physical world. So some of us are more connected to the white part of Torah, which is called the white fire, and some of us that are connected to the black part of the Torah, which is the black fire. I didn't really get to much, but just explain what I talked about in the beginning. Why did we wake up late? So we woke up late. We thought, speaking on the spirituality, the Jewish people, the night before the giving of the Torah, we went to sleep. Now, which is hard to imagine, because if you know you're going to get a lottery ticket, tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be very hard for you to sleep. Yeah, you're going to be very excited, and you're probably not going to go to sleep. So how did we go to sleep? Why did we go to sleep? So we forced ourselves to go to sleep because we thought, and this is a big mistake, we thought that we have to, in order to prepare ourselves for something so spiritually significant, we have to become super spiritual. Yeah, try to get as close as we can to being as super spiritual as we can. So it says in the Torah, and they knew at that time that when a person goes to sleep, their neshama, their soul, leaves the body. It's elevated. It goes beyond the body. So we thought if we go to sleep, that's our best bet at being as spiritual as we possibly can, because the soul had just been leaving the body. It wasn't within the constraints of the body. It wasn't within the physical world. That was a mistake, because God wants us to serve the Torah souls in body. God was not exceptionally happy about that. And so therefore, as a rectification, Shavuot, the first night, we stay up the entire night and we read Torah, something called Tikkun. We actually go through the entire Torah, like an abridged version of the entire Torah. It takes a very, very long time. Or in our case, in our community, we have speakers that speak throughout the night, which is pretty cool. Lots of cakes and cookies, coffee to keep you awake. Another interpretation of why maybe why we went to sleep is that God actually put us to sleep. God allowed us to fall asleep, and he forced us to wake up late to go to sleep. Why? So that we would wake up feeling upset. Now, not sad or depressed, but bitter and humble. We were humbled by the experience. God was saying, this is the prerequisite for you, for later generations. This is the prerequisite for you to accept Torah and to understand Torah and appreciate Torah and make it stick with you, as if you are a little bit humbled. So he humbled us, but still, that's a different interpretation. But if we go according to the first interpretation, that we should not have gone to sleep, because we should have remained awake, we should have been excited, and we should have remained within our bodies. So that's why we stay awake the first night of the giving of the Torah. Does anybody have any questions? I apologize. Shorter class. Okay, I hope you got some of that. I know I spoke kind of fast, but I wish you guys a great rest of the week. And
may I ask if you can repeat this on another day?
Repeat it on another day. Maybe I'll make a special class. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. There's actually a lot more I want to talk about Shavuot. There's a lot more.
Yeah, you don't have a regular other day other than today.
For me personally, my time to teach.
Yeah, your presentation.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I'll give another one on next Tuesday. More on.
That's great.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day. Sei gesund. See you, Dan.
Sehr gesund.
Dan the man.